several years ago, I had a pitcher on my team who was a really good pitcher. He was my number three starter in the rotation, and he ended up playing some pro ball. And the two guys ahead of him actually pitched in the big leagues, but it was a good pitching staff. But this number three guy on my staff was a guy that from the very beginning, he had a great sense of humor. He was a pretty good guy, but I could tell he had authority issues. He just, if I told the guys to do something a certain way, he was going to do it the opposite way. He was just one of those guys that was going to challenge everything that I tried to put in the program. So one of the things that he had a lot of trouble with, and I was kind of a Sparky Anderson. I like even though I wore my hair as long as I could when I was young, I liked when I coached my own team, I wanted those guys that looked sharp, and I didn't like the real long hair, and I didn't like the facial hair. I was really old school, and this guy completely rebelled about that to the point where there was tension. There was tension between us, and so I had voluntary chapels each Sunday morning before the game, and he never came to chapels, and just kind of a rebellious guy. And to be honest with you, pardon my French, was a little bit of a smart ass, just attitude was a little off most of the time. So we had an All-American center fielder on that team, and he made an incredible catch in center field off the wall. And he made the play. It was one of the best catches I've ever seen. Made the play, hit his head on the wall. At that time, we had a metal wall in our outfield, and that was another brilliant idea I had. But it knocked him out. He suffered a concussion. And back in the mid '90s, I knew nothing. This was early '90s actually. I knew nothing about concussions, and just sort of trusted my trainer. And the next day at practice, he said, "Hey, he's okay." So the following weekend, we go to South Carolina to play the Gamecocks, and it's Friday night, and things aren't going very well for us. So I make a pitching change, and when I go out to make a pitching change, I look out in the outfield, and my All-American center fielder is on his knees, and he's holding his left arm. And he was a left-handed throwing outfielder. So I thought, man, something's wrong. So I asked the umpire if I can go out and talk to him. So I take the trainer with me, and I get out there, and he said, "Coach, I don't know what's wrong with me, but my left arm is numb, and my legs feel funny, and I feel like I can't stand up." And I'm going, my goodness, is he having a stroke or a heart attack, or what is going on? So they get into the hospital. Thankfully, his mother was at the games that weekend. She'd come in from Atlanta. And so I'm shook up about this, because it looked real serious. And not only that, he was the best hitter on the team, and our hopes kind of rested on this guy. So we get back to the hotel that night, and we get out of these vans that transported us from the game to the hotel. And so I get the team together in the parking lot, and I say, "Guys, I'm really concerned about Jeff, and I know he's at the hospital. He's being taken good care of. His mom's with him. But when you get to your rooms tonight, I want you guys to pray for Jeff because I'm concerned about him." And so this pitcher that I told you about earlier, that this rebellious guy that never came to chapel, he spoke up and he said, "Coach, I think we are to pray right now." And I'm like, I'm in shock. This guy's never been to chapel. He's never expressed any interest in spiritual things, and he says we should pray. And so I'm looking around at one of the guys that always comes to chapel to try to call on somebody to pray, and I said, "Which one of you guys would like to pray for Jeff?" And Scott, this pitcher, said, "Coach, I'll pray." I'm going, wow, I'm just amazed at this. So he didn't just stand there and pray, guys. He got on his knees in the parking lot at the hotel and prayed a beautiful prayer for our outfielder. And I'm absolutely blown away by this. And this is how God convicted me with all that. First of all, I judged my pitcher, Scott. I judged him. I put him in a category. I put the Chapel guys in one category, and I put Scott and some of the other guys that didn't come to Chapel in another category. Bad mistake. That was me being judgmental and pretending to be God, I guess. So I was very convicted about that. And then not long after that, I read these verses, and it was amazing how God sort of introduced me to these verses in a fresh way after this experience of judging my pitcher, Scott. So this is found in Matthew, the 7th chapter, 3rd verse. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? And this is where Jesus really nailed me with this verse. He said, you hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So I learned a valuable lesson. Scott taught me that just because you don't come to the baseball chapel doesn't mean you're not a believer. And it also means that any of us can pray, no matter what our attitude is, no matter what's going on in our life. God doesn't, he never says you cannot pray because your life isn't up to standard. He says, everybody can come to me. Everybody can come to me and pray. As a matter of fact, I really believe that God heard Scott's prayer that night, because the next morning, Jeff was much better, and the doctor gave him the clearance to play the following weekend. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever had the experience of being a little bit like the Pharisees or a little bit hypocritical. And sometimes we have a tendency to look at someone that's in this denomination or someone that has this philosophy or this political party or whatever, and we immediately label them as a non-believer. And that's not our job. That's not my job. And that I learned a valuable lesson that night from Scott, and hopefully I'll be a little bit better in terms of not judging people, because I got plenty of wood in my eyes, guys. I've got plenty of, I don't have just one plank. I've got several planks in my eyes. So I need to get those out before I start getting them out of your eyes.